He knew the world would not be the same. Few people laughed. Few people cried. Most people were silent. I remembered the line from the Hindu scripture, the Bhagavad Gita. Vishnu is trying to persuade the prince that he should do his duty, and to impress him takes on his multi-armed form and says, "Now I am become death, the destroyer of worlds." I suppose we all thought that one way or another.
Hello everyone, and welcome again to another Superman villain video in my Supervillains Explored Superman Marathon, and today I'm going to be taking a look at yet another female villain character, and that is none other than the ultra-dangerous former shock jock turned being of pure electric energy, Leslie Willis, aka Livewire. Livewire is a unique character due to the fact that her first actual appearance was not actually in a comic book, but rather in a cartoon. Livewire was an original character created for the 90s Superman animated series. She was brought into the show by Bruce Timm, Paul Dini, and all the rest of the creative people working on the show. And much like Harley Quinn of the Batman universe, her popularity increased to the point of her actually being inducted into the mainstream DC continuity in 2006 by John Byrne and Gail Simone. So it wasn't quite until recent years that Livewire had become a popular character, a popular villain that was associated with Superman. In fact, I believe she was put on Smallville, and she made a couple other appearances in some other shows, but let's actually talk about the character herself. Now, I'm actually going to recount the events of what happened in the original 90s animated series first, before I actually delve into her comic book counterpart. In the original 90s Superman animated series, Livewire, who I've already stated, her name is Leslie Willis, and she was voiced, it's worth noting that she was voiced by actress Lori Petty, who was most famous for playing the character Tank Girl in the live-action Tank Girl movie based off of the Tank Girl comics. But anyways, Leslie Willis is a shock jock. She's a highly controversial Metropolis radio DJ who's extremely infamous for constantly hating and bashing Superman day in, day out. Almost pretty much every single day that she comes on air, she goes on these big, long, venomous rants about Superman and why he's really a terrible person and he's a complete menace. In a sense, she's kind of like Superman's equivalent to J. Jonah Jameson from the Spider-Man universe. She's that one sort of public character who is meant to try to convince everybody else that the hero is actually a menace who's only reaping the benefits for personal glory. She brings up a lot of points and she's able to influence a lot of people towards her. And of course, it's revealed that after an interview with Lois Lane and Clark Kent that it's mostly just an act that she plays out just so she can make ends meet. And on that same day where she's interviewed by Clark and Lois, it just so happens that there's a rock concert going on that's sponsoring her radio show, and it just so happens to be on the anniversary of her radio show, and she decides to host the rock concert personally, despite the fact that on the day there's a really bad thunderstorm coming, and it could be potentially very dangerous for all the people at the concert. Long story short, Leslie appears at the rock concert. The police and Superman both show up. Leslie tries to coerce the crowd into throwing things and booing Superman off stage, but then the lightning storm comes, and a bolt of lightning comes and electrocutes all of the equipment, and electrocuting Leslie in the process, completely transforming her. Her skin turns pale, ghostly white, and her hair turns very light blue, standing all the way up on edge. And then she's knocked unconscious. And when she wakes up in a hospital bed, she realizes that she has electrical powers, and on top of that, on the TV, when she sees what happens to her, for some reason, the newscaster decided to make the whole incident look like Superman had let her get shocked on purpose, as to get revenge on her for spouting all those negative things about him over the radio, and this causes Leslie to go completely apeshit and start going on a rampage by causing havoc and destruction all throughout Metropolis, and she then dubs herself Livewire. And the powers that she displays in the animated series are pretty impressive, because in a sense, Livewire is really a being of pure electrical energy. She's able to literally take any inanimate object completely devoid of any electrical power and just power it up all by herself. She can turn any null, completely old electrical object and make it work instantly. And on top of that, she's even able to hijack the entire sort of Times Square display of Metropolis and broadcast her face all over the place. So she's really quite a very tough opponent for Superman to fight, since she can be pretty much anywhere in a big-ass, sprawling city full of lights and high-tech monitors and stuff. But Superman soon figures out that her main weakness is actually water, which makes sense, because any being that's made out of pure electricity, if you dump them with water, then they're gonna get messed up pretty bad. But the opening episode with Livewire definitely gave her a very good first impression, and she would show up several times later on throughout the cartoon. She would team up with Parasite. She would actually team up with Rudy Jones in one episode that was very, very cool. And even in a later episode, she actually teams up with Harley Quinn and Poison Ivy, leaving it up to Supergirl and Batgirl to actually stop them. So that could have been... I see that was probably just an obvious bit of foreshadowing, considering that Livewire, like Harley Quinn herself, would be inducted into the main DC continuity. But yeah, Livewire was a very popular original character that was put into the show, and for very good reason, because her powers are cool and all that, but the winning factor about Livewire, the one thing that makes everybody love her, is her personality. Seriously, I don't know if it's just Lori Petty's performance or if it's just the way the character is written, but Livewire is an incredibly fun character. Whenever she appears on screen, she just has that smart aleck, laid back, totally smart-ass attitude towards Superman, and it just makes her so cool and interesting. Now I'm going to get into the comic book, the actual DC New Earth comic version of Livewire. Now, the New Earth comic book version of Livewire is mostly the same as her DC Animated Universe counterpart, but with a few differences in her origin story. Like in the cartoon, Leslie Willis is a shock jock, where she constantly bashes Superman on her radio show every single night. But unlike the cartoon version, she was actually born with the ability to control electricity or something like that. Apparently, she's like a mutant from the X-Men comics or something. But the main reason why she becomes Livewire is when the owner of the radio station decides to close down her show because so that he can make room for a radio channel that plays country music, which is kind of like what happened to Howard Stern. He also doesn't really like the message that she preaches to everybody out there on the radio, constantly talking shit about Superman, considering that he feels that Superman did him a great favor by saving his wife. So yeah, that's pretty much the direct link that Leslie has towards with her hatred of Superman, and she gets turned into Livewire by traveling to the top of the radio station, and then she gets struck by lightning and transformed into Livewire, and that's when she decides to dish out some whoop ass on Superman. Personally, I kind of prefer the cartoon version of her origins, but that's just me, though. I mean, no disrespect to John Byrne or Gail Simone. I mean, they did a good job bringing her into the mainstream comics, but I just like her origin in the cartoon better. But one thing's for sure, Livewire's powers have not been toned down at all from the cartoon to the comics. In the comics, it's safe to say that she's just as powerful as she is in the cartoon. For example, there's this one event where Livewire and a whole bunch of other metahumans are kidnapped by this alien called the Auctioneer. And long story short, they eventually escape, and they try to broadcast to the whole world all the different alien creatures that the Auctioneer has kept up in his private ship. And Livewire is able to transfer her consciousness into every single TV on the planet and display the inside of the Auctioneer's spaceship. So yeah, it's the same ultra powerful, super almost godlike Livewire that we know from the cartoon. But really, there's not really much else to talk about with Livewire in the comics. She hasn't really done a whole lot else, which is to be expected because she was first inducted into the comics in 2006. So the writers really haven't had a whole lot of time to do really big, grand things with her. But my personal opinion of Livewire, like I said before, her big winning characteristic is, in fact, her personality. She's a very, very wisecracking, very funny, very smart aleck character. She's constantly cracking jokes whenever she's fighting Superman. She's sort of like a villainous version of Spider-Man when she's fighting Superman, and that's what makes her such a great and funny and entertaining character. That's probably why so many people loved her so much that they actually wanted to see her put into the regular comics, just like Harley Quinn. And she's been pushed in a whole lot of other shows and stuff outside of the comics. Like I said, she showed up in Smallville, and she even makes an appearance in DC Universe Online. So yeah, Livewire has really been pushed as just a regular DC baddie, and to me, there's nothing wrong with that, because she is definitely a very worthy supervillain, and I'm willing to perfectly accept her as a regular, good old member of Superman's main rogues gallery. This has been my Supervillains Explored video on Livewire. I hope you all enjoyed it. Have a pleasant day.